everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we are working on homemade face masks. So we visited the CDC website after seeing a news story that the hospitals, clinics, homeless shelters are requesting that any sewers or crafters can contribute to the need and the shortage. So if you want to make your mask so that it will fit your nose better, you can add floral wire to it. I've heard of people using bread ties and even pipe cleaner. If you want to be able to wash these and reuse them, I would say that the pipe cleaner is not washable, so I'm just using straight floral wire that we already had on hand. And I'm just going to cut this about 2 inches so that it'll fit over the bridge of your nose. So there's a pretty quick and easy tutorial on the CDC website. This pattern doesn't take into consideration different size faces or any adjustability. So here's the change that I made. So here are 2 masks that I made. The CDC recommends doing 3 pleats on the side, and the thickness of the layers didn't really want to go through my sewing machine so well, and when I went around the perimeter to top stitch it, I had a really hard time getting over the pleats on the opposite direction. So I made a little tweak, and I did 2 pleats on this side, and it went a lot better and actually fit me a lot better, but then there was no adjustability for the nose to be able to make it close to your face. So since there were recommendations for using wire, I grabbed a roll of floral wire that I had on hand. We snipped a little section off. We have two 7-inch elastics. We have an inner and an outer layer of fabric here. My inner layer is a cotton flannel, and my outer layer is just a piece of scrap cotton fabric that I had left over from quilting and sewing. They are recommending that they're doing these in cotton so that they're breathable and washable. Now you can spend 5 minutes putting these together and sewing them, or you can take 20 minutes. There's lots of different ways to do it. Some people are just cutting one piece of fabric and folding it in half. That will speed up the process a lot. Some people in the professional field are asking that you leave an opening so that they can put some kind of a filter in the center, like a gauze pad. If you're going to do it that way, you're going to need to have finished edges all the way around. So I'm just doing what works for us. Now I did try the floral wire on my last one that I went through. And I will tell you that a bread tie would probably be better because they're plastic coated, and this end of the wire was wanting to poke through. So if you're going to do it that way, maybe fish hook it over on the end so that it's not going to want to poke through. And then to make it stay, you could just zigzag stitch over the top of it. You just want to make sure that your needle's not going to hit the wire so that you don't break your needle. There's already a shortage of these supplies in the stores, so we're just using what we have on hand. So I pinned my elastic on the inside, and it's looping down flat here to the side so that we don't stitch over it. And we're going to go ahead and do a straight stitch all the way around the side. I'm starting near the center, and I'm going to leave about a 2-inch opening at the top so I can turn this inside out when we're done. Now when you start, don't forget to use a stay stitch or a back stitch so that that doesn't come apart later on. The first few that I'm making are all my practice ones, and they're going to be for our family's use. It's giving me the practice stitching that I need to kind of craft this so that it will be good for people in the medical profession, because they're saying they are not going to throw them away, that they're going to wash them. Now if you don't have a sewing machine on hand, you can still do this. A whip stitch or a blanket stitch is a good thing to start with, and it's a good easy stitch. You can look that up. I'm sure there's tutorials. There's sewing tutorials on YouTube like crazy. And as you can see from the previous segment, there are lots of obstacles in every person's life. My regular obstacle in filming is children wanting to be in front of the camera. Some people are saying, I don't have a car, or I don't have elastic on hand, or I don't have material on hand. Well, you can use any shirt. You can use, a cotton t-shirt. You can use anything you have on hand. These are not things that you have to go out and get. You can use a tied mask that'll tie behind your head, like behind your neck and up high if you don't have elastic. Even a coated hairband would work for your ear loops. Now I have my elastic pinned at the corners of my fabric. And since that is going to be a wear point, I am back stitching over that so that I have a total of 3 or 4 layers of stitching over the top of the elastic. Okay, so now we've got this little opening. This is just like making a pillow casing. You're just going to use your thumbs, your fingers, and you can use the eraser end of a pencil to push your corners out if you like. You can use a sewing stiletto. This is a sewing stiletto. It's a pointy end without being sharp. You're just going to want to make sure that you don't poke through your fabric at the corners. This is the basic unfinished version before we put the pleats in. Now we're just going to want to take the top where we left the opening, and you can press this on an iron. We're trying to get as many of these out as possible, and honestly, ironing them isn't really vital to the next step. We're going to top stitch all the way around the edge with the machine and put our pleats in at the same time, so ironing is not necessary. Now the CDC tutorial recommended 3 pleats, and I had a lot of trouble getting it through my sewing machine with 3, so I preferred to do 2. if you have a family like we do, we have 5 kids at home, we want to make sure everybody's protected. We have a farm and we have products coming in and out, so we want to make sure that the kids are protected too in case anybody is to approach them when they're out in the yard or if visitors come by the house. I also have a daughter who doesn't live at home and she has 3 children, so we're going to be making up 5 of these to send to them also. So we have a kid-size mask. The CDC recommends 7.5 by 5 inch for the kids. My daughter had a play costume, so we checked the size with her and it does match up to about the same, you can see, but the ear loops on this are about 8 inches and that was way too big for her. The CDC is recommending 7 inches of elastic and they're not saying a different size for the kids. So you may want to cut your elastic depending on your kids if you're making this for your own family. In our house, we've got kids from the age of 2 to 13. So you do want to keep this in mind because as much as you want them to be one size fits all, they're not. Now this was a scrap piece that I had left over and I made this one for my son. He is 2.5 years old and this fit him really good. I cut the elastics at this at 5 inches and my 6-year-old daughter couldn't get it to stretch over her ears to the back without pulling her ears forward. So it was too tight for her, but it was good for a 2-year-old. And this scrap piece was a 5 by 6.5 section, so it was an inch smaller. So at my daughter's request, I'm making one for her. She wants hers 2-sided fabric. If you have a printed fabric, try to make sure that your design is going crosswise instead of up and down. So we're going to start the same way as with the adult masks, and you want your printed side facing up, 2 layers of fabric. And you can choose to pin your elastic in or not, it's entirely up to you. But I'm just starting with my fabric in the corner. Some people like it more in the sides to have it a little bit offset so they're not catching that at the corner when they pivot. I do notice sometimes I have a little bit of a hard time with the fabric and the elastic catching down into the bobbin plate. I'm just going to pin that elastic right there just like I did with the adult mask. I'll tell you, one of the things I ever hated most about home economics class was the teacher fussing about my pinning when you can just finger pin and put your elastic in as you go. You can do it whatever works best for you. Same thing, we're going to start with a couple of stay stitches, or you can back stitch if your machine doesn't have a 0 setting. So now we've clipped our corners to make it easier for turning, and we're going to turn it right side out. Okay, so now we've got it pinned on both sides and pinned at the opening, and we're going to straight stitch all the way around it. So it's not totally easy putting the mask on somebody else, and when they're small, they have a hard time doing it on their own. There you go. So if you have to run out, here you go. This is a good little method. Nice time-saving thing. I think with the little kids, a tie-behind mask might be a better idea. So that's it for today, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.